This is Will Knight, and we are back with All About Nothing, and we are here with Liz. Liz, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Granddaughter. I am a born and raised Chicagoan. I live on the northwest side of Chicago in the North Mayfair neighborhood, where I live here with my two young sons, Rohan and Lokesh, and my husband, Ram.
Pride and joy.
Pride and joy.
And a big kid.
Yes. Yes, and a big kid, and my third child. Yeah.
We won't tell them that, though. No. So tell everybody, what are you running for? You're running for politics.
Yeah.
You're a politician, or want to be a politician, and you're running for...
So I'm running for Cook County Commissioner in the 12th District. So the Cook County Board has 17 districts. We're up here in the 12th District. And this is a race that is currently an open seat. And I'm running because the county board is responsible for a number of really important things in our community, the administration of our criminal justice system, as well as the oversight of one of the largest public health systems in the region and one of the largest in the country, and also has one of the largest departments of public health in the country, in the Cook County Department of Public Health. So very much critical to the well-being of our community and the administration of government in our neighborhood.
What is the most important or up there topic that you want to focus on for like solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are a number of issues that are going to be facing Cook County government in the coming years. I think one of the most important things that's going to be affecting us as county residents and affecting county government is the impacts to health care from the federal administration's cuts to Medicaid. And we're going to see a lot of people lose their access to health care. It's going to become really challenging for people to continue to afford their health insurance as they see potentially their health insurance premiums go up. And Cook County Health really serves as a safety net for that in being able to provide care to people, and we do so regardless of their ability to pay. And that's a really important safety net for our community, so that people who are the most vulnerable in our community have a place to get care.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, and then I would say the other thing is, as a mom, I think a lot about what we are doing as a government to create an environment for our community for families and children to thrive. And I think, one of those that is sometimes goes unnoticed is the investments that we're making in our infrastructure, in critical infrastructure like our drinking water supply, and how we are working to make sure that we are investing in those systems to create the healthiest neighborhoods and the healthiest communities possible for children.
Yeah, what's interesting is a lot of people believe, losing Medicare, we're just going to go back to that topic. Mm-hmm. It's very important. A lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
I worked in the medical field for over 30 years, being with the fire department and working in several major hospitals. People sometimes feel that the emergency room is their primary doctor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, this is not your primary doctor. But they don't have insurance.
Right. So, to your point, what happens is when you don't have health insurance or access to a primary care physician because you don't have health insurance, what ends up happening, especially for people with chronic illnesses, is they may forego care for their illness, and then at some point they end up having to come into the emergency room in a much sicker, much more acute state. And overall, I think that's terrible for that person's well-being, but it also puts more stress on the system as a whole. And you're right, it's going to drive a lot more people to the emergency room as their first point of care, and that's going to have downstream impacts on people who are in emergency situations for all of us.
We do see that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you go into the emergency room for an accident or a heart attack, and not those people, but several people, you go in for a stomach ache, and the nurse tells you, the charge nurse says, oh, it's an 8-hour wait.
Yep.
Have you tried Tylenol? Or have you tried Pepto-Bismol?
Yeah.
And that's a very important issue.
It is. And, I think what Medicaid and the Medicaid expansion did is provide people more access to health insurance. It also helped us expand that primary care landscape, and that was really important. But there's still so much work to do. There's still people who don't have access. And my fear is that what we're going to see in the next couple of years is those people who were able to get health care through the Medicaid expansion are going to lose it and are really going to be left with just the emergency room.
Yeah, I also noticed that a lot of people in several countries and states around our United States of America, I believe I was reading an article that in Kentucky, and I know we're not in Kentucky, but there's a small community in Kentucky where 10,000 of the 12,000 people are all on Medicare or some type of Affordable Care Act. Known as Obamacare.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, right? They don't know, they call Obamacare something different in their state, right? So Kentucky has something called Kentucky Care, right?
Yeah.
And really all it is just health care offered under the American Care Act that expanded people's eligibility to get on Medicaid. And it wasn't just Illinois that took advantage of that. It was tons of states, many states dominated by representatives in the federal government who voted against that expansion. But many of their constituents rely on that health care as a lifeline for them.
How do you have two boys?
Yeah.
How does health care affect you?
Sure. I mean, look, I've been very fortunate to have health care through my employer. But I've also had a couple of scary incidents, with my boys. One of the things that has kind of driven me and driven my passion in talking about infrastructure and its importance in our community is an experience I had with my oldest son, Rohan. When he was 15 months old, we found out that he had elevated levels of lead in his blood. And that was a result of a state-mandated test that Illinois requires for all children at 15 months and 3 years. And it was incredibly scary, the first step is figuring out, okay, where is this potential exposure to lead, right? Where is this happening? And I worked myself, and my husband, we worked with the Chicago Department of Public Health. We had our home inspected. We found that there were sources of lead paint throughout our home. We had that stabilized, and then came back almost 15 months later and found out that my son's lead levels went up again.
Really?
Yeah. So, at that point, I had a 6-week-old baby and a 3-year-old, and you're in the home, and you're like, oh my God, where is this coming from? And you start researching, okay, what are the potential sources of exposure for lead? We have now found out, and I think we're talking more about the fact that almost most of the housing stock in Chicago has a lead service line. So the line that is delivering drinking water from the public water main to our homes has lead components. And that has the potential to leach lead into the drinking water in our home. So knowing that, I'm sitting here knowing that my son has now even higher lead levels. I'm feeding my 6-week-old infant a bottle of formula made with tap water, and I'm terrified at that moment because you're like, what could I have done as a parent to try to prevent this exposure? And it is just a very scary thing to hear from your doctor. So when I think about my family's experience with the healthcare landscape, I mean, there are a couple of things that I think about in that instance. The first thing was the ability to just have my son tested, right? And that's something that's critically important for families, and something that I worry about under the loss of Medicaid coverage.
I did not even know that. Is it the county or the state requires?
The state requires it. So the state requires that children be tested at 15 months and 3 years, roughly. And that is a requirement for all children throughout Illinois. There are even more stringent requirements if you live in an area that is known to have a higher likelihood of lead exposure based on the drinking water infrastructure or the age of the home. But what I'll share with you is that during the pandemic, we saw those testing rates for children really go down. So a lot of kids were possibly having exposure and not knowing it, just because access to healthcare became a lot more challenging during the pandemic.
Yeah, I remember a couple of months ago, I was looking for another doctor because I wasn't satisfied with the doctor that I had, so I wanted a second opinion and look for another doctor. And it was interesting how you call up, this is, it's going to be 4 weeks to 2 months before you get seen. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How can... So you want me to go to the emergency room before I come to the doctor, but you have no appointments at all for 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's definitely something that as a parent you struggle with, right? Like, I think that the healthcare landscape is stressed in terms of the availability of physicians and the ability to pair available care services to where they're needed. Without a doubt.
And of course, Cook County Hospital is one of the largest hospitals and trauma center in Illinois.
Yeah, it's a 600-bed hospital. It's a level 1 trauma center. It is, without a doubt, probably one of the most critical healthcare facilities that we have in the region.
And the waiting time is always
you're not
going to go in and be out in 2 hours.
No.
So what are some of your key issues that you want to address?
Yeah, so I think for me it's protecting Cook County Health's ability to provide that care. It's expanding that care, making sure that we are expanding the messaging around this so that people know, okay, if you lose your health insurance, you can go to a Cook County Health clinic, right? You can get early care. And then also, for the second thing that I think is most important to me is partnering with our fellow governments, the City of Chicago, the State of Illinois, and actually addressing lead service line replacement. Right now, the City of Chicago is estimating that they will be done replacing all of the lead service lines in our city by 2076.
Wow.
So that's almost 50 years from now. And as a parent, that terrifies me
ridiculous.
Because that's ridiculous. How many more kids are going to have exposure to lead before that happens? So I think as a county government, we really have to stand up and both amplify the message that this is something that has a critical impact on the public health of our community. And we need to be convening our partners in the city and the state to talk about what sources of funding we have to actually get this work done and how we move it faster. Because every year that this gets pushed out is another year that a kid is potentially exposed.
And it's interesting because now you're saying, or shall I say the government is saying, we're going to replace these and it won't be done for 55 years. So you have a 1-year-old right now.
Is their kid going to be?
Right.
Yeah.
Or their grandkids. And then all of a sudden this is like, 50. Okay, I'm 56 years old, so there's no more lead in our city, or county.
Yeah. So to me, having the partnerships around that, amplifying the message of how important that is, and then also working together from a public health landscape. I mean, look, I've worked in government before. I know we have so many different ways to communicate to residents and to say, all right, you do have a lead service line in your home. Here's what you can do to protect your child. I wish that I would have gotten that information in the hospital when my child was born, right? You're going home to a home in Chicago. If it was built before 1970-something, make sure you're using filtered water for your formula, right? We have a lot of ways to communicate to people, and I think we can be doing that better because, I understand infrastructure can't be replaced in a day, but we can be much better at communicating to parents so they know what the risks are to their children.
What's interesting is I was a paramedic for years with the Chicago Fire Department, and we always kind of like wanted hospitals that have deliver babies, because not all hospitals in Chicago deliver babies.
Yep.
But we wanted those hospitals like Northwestern, Rush, all those other, teach CPR after or before when the baby is about to be delivered or after it's delivered or before it's delivered. It's an 8-hour course.
Right. Right.
So it's just like teach your parents CPR.
Yeah.
Give them information, like you say, on lead, or give them information just like you do in a booklet or a pamphlet.
Yeah.
Give them the information so we can stop this healthcare crisis going from 0 to 100, within 2 years, and all of a sudden you're being tested, and your kid's being tested, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, there's lead in my CPR.
Yeah.
Where did he get this from?
Yeah. And I think that's critically important because one of the things about lead exposure is there's nothing you can do to reverse it, right? All you can do is, so for children who have lead exposure, they're more likely to have behavioral health issues. They're more likely to have challenges with learning in school. It doesn't mean every child who has lead exposure is going to experience that, but it makes it more likely. Mm-hmm. And the way you address those things are really just to provide more supports to them, provide therapies, provide additional services, which I can tell you as a parent are also hard to access in our community. But the best thing we can do, and public health experts agree on this, is to prevent exposure to lead. So if you get that information on day one when you're in the hospital, I think it at least gives parents the ability to know how to respond appropriately. And I look at other public health campaigns that have been really successful, like the Back to Sleep campaign, right? If you are taking home a newborn infant today, they have to sleep on their back because they stress that so much in the hospital before you go home. And that has had a really wonderful, I think it's had a positive impact on what we've seen in terms of, right?
Definitely.
We've seen a dramatic drop in sudden infant death syndrome. And I think you can treat it like that as, hey, you could have a lead service line, use bottled water or filtered water if you're making a bottle of formula or you're giving water to your child.
Yeah, that SIDS has dropped dramatically, I believe, because when I first started in the fire department, I worked in a community, and obviously in Chicago there's a lot of communities, but we were, I remember going to several people's homes in the morning at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock and had the sad news of telling the parents that your kid died during the night. And when I left 30 years later, I didn't have, I would have to say I went probably 3 or 5 years without any calls.
Right.
Not to say like other people didn't, but it was not a regular thing anymore.
Yeah, and I think
hopefully remains very low.
Absolutely. And I think the data supports that. So I think it shows us that we can make really good progress with public health campaigns. I mean, think about wearing a seatbelt. I'm sure you probably saw much more catastrophic incidents when people weren't wearing seatbelts. So
and prom night.
Prom night.
Prom
not
night
drinking
with
and driving.
Not drinking and driving. We started a program at I believe Resurrection High School.
Yep.
And about prom night.
Yeah.
So that was part of one of the programs.
Yeah. So
there's
ways to do this, right? There's ways to inform people so that they can make a better decision. And I think there's also an obligation for our governments to do this, right? This is about giving kids from day one the best possible chances for a good, healthy, and successful life and to thrive. And we've become very aware of how critical that 0 to 5 age range is in influencing the outcomes of a child's life. And I would say we're really missing a piece if we don't think about this part too.
Oh, definitely.
Because we really need to give kids every chance possible and really remove any potential barriers to their success.
Yeah. So we're going to go on to affordable housing.
Okay.
So what are some of the critical issues that the county or you want to implement or try to implement to bring into Cook County?
Yeah. So I would say my district, probably like many districts that are located in Chicago, are seeing a lack of affordable housing options for residents. I actually just came from an event in my community where we were talking about kind of the root causes of homelessness and the increase in homelessness in our cities. And a lot of it is actually driven by what the number of units. It's basically like, are there enough affordable units for people to rent? And are they affordable at what price? So in Cook County, I think we've got a lot of different ways to incentivize the development of new affordable housing. I also think that we have ways to incentivize the preservation of existing affordable housing stock and that naturally occurring affordable housing. One of the things that I think we're starting to see is efforts to look at ways to infill in our communities with denser housing developments, right? So instead of just building single-family homes, do we build 2 or 3 flats, some of that infill housing so that you can get more than one unit in a house? The city of Chicago just passed legislation to allow granny flats or accessory dwelling units, right? That's a way to give homeowners a way to potentially put a piece of affordable housing, essentially, another unit for them to rent to somebody on their property, right? Without having to be a multi-unit,
and
owner.
For our audience, you maybe heard the term coach houses.
Yeah, coach houses, which used to be pretty common in parts of our city. So those are things that I think can be done from a zoning perspective. There are also, for the Cook County, we administer the property tax system, right, and the actual collection of property taxes. I think.
Don't talk to me about that.
I know.
So go ahead.
Nobody is ever happy when we start talking about property
tax. I know.
But I think that there are already programs out there that can support multi-unit owners who are keeping their units affordable to people and being able to demonstrate that they are providing affordable rental options in their community. We need to make sure that we're protecting that, expanding those programs where we can, because it provides a little bit of relief for some of the owners that we see who are struggling with, how do I keep rents affordable while my property taxes on my building are rising, right? So we have to tackle it from that aspect. So I think for the county, it really, there's no one silver bullet. Mm-hmm. It's how do we look at the landscape of options so that we're both incentivizing the development of affordable housing from, making the zoning landscape easier to navigate, but then also preserving existing affordable housing so that owners don't feel like they are forced to rise rents and push people out.
So how do you want to work with local government and commissioners, your counterparts?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about building relationships. I've worked in government for over a decade and a half, and one of the things I can tell you that makes you a successful person in advancing things with government is building a good working relationship with somebody. So when I look at it, I realize that you really can't do anything at just the county board level alone. Any legislator who tells you, like, I'm going to go make this happen, they cannot make it happen alone. They are going to need the votes of their colleagues. A lot of times they're going to need the support of other governments and other levels of government. And to me, it's really looking at issues like affordable housing, issues like lead service line replacement from a holistic standpoint of, okay, what needs to be done at the city level, what needs to be done at the state level and the county level, and how do we advocate together for those things? How do I advocate with my colleagues to the state legislature to say, hey, this is something that we both want for our communities,
because
right?
Housing shortage is not only in Chicago, it's everywhere. It's in New York, it's
everywhere.
In California, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I think there are going to be universal goals, but I also think that there's ways that we can look at other jurisdictions to see what's working, and are there ways for us to replicate that here if that is shown to be a good model for how to encourage development.
You know what was interesting is I saw containers. I was in Kentucky, and I saw this new development apartment that was made out of containers.
Yeah. So.
And they're actually beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those as well. In Cook County, we actually had a pilot program to build modular homes. So one of the challenges with home building, right, is, both the cost of building that home. So the question is, how do you build them and manufacture them in a way that they can remain at an affordable price point for families? So we did a modular home pilot. One was in Humboldt Park. And essentially, these are prefabricated structures that get put together on site. It's very fast. And, these are homes that can be a great starter home for a family. They come in around the $350,000 price point. And it's a way for people to get access to home ownership. And it's a creative way to look at how we expand the existing housing stock to give people that opportunity.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. They're pretty cool. They're very nice homes.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw them when I was in Kentucky. I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really cool. They're not in another state. I can't remember where they were, but they're becoming very popular.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the kind of stuff we need to be looking at, right? We have to be really creative in our solutions. There's probably no one solution that's going to address this.
How do, not you per se, but how does any commissioner or a person who in politics prioritize funding? Funding for some of these programs.
Yeah. So, I will say one of the things about budgets and being somebody who has been in government for a while, your budget is really a moral document, right, and a reflection of your values as a government at the end of the day. And I think when we look at how we're going to prioritize funding, we have to look first at where the need is greatest. Where the need is greatest and where the outcomes of us not funding it can be catastrophic. So for Cook County, that's always going to be driven by health care because the outcomes of us not funding that critical care system are catastrophic to communities.
And we're all getting older.
And we are all getting older.
Like my mom used to say, once you hit 40, everything goes downhill from there.
Yes. No, it's true. It's true. We have an aging population in this county, and we're going to have dramatically expanding healthcare needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back a little bit, and this is the part where you're going to tell everybody, from 16 years old, where were you?
Oh, man. 16 years old, I was a Chicago Park District lifeguard at Oak Street Beach.
Really?
Yep.
How did that work out?
It was great. It was great. There are days now where I'm sitting in my office and I'm like, I would like to go be a lifeguard for one day today. Just to be able to sit in a rowboat on Lake Michigan and look out at the skyline. It was a really wonderful experience.
And how does that bring, okay, where did you go from there?
Yeah. So, I think just like what I did as a lifeguard to where I am now, it's about service. Right? It's about trying to find a way to serve your community in any small way possible. I was really driven to being a lifeguard because I was a swimmer, but I was really driven to being a lifeguard at that time because I wanted to help people. I wanted to make people safe, and I have a deep love for this city, and I wanted to be a part of that in that way. But I went from there to studying political science and ultimately found myself working in government straight out of college. And one of the first things I worked on for my local alderman was a large infrastructure project to reduce neighborhood flooding. Okay. And that came after an experience of seeing people's homes flood after a really large rain event. And it really drove me to this physical infrastructure space and our underground infrastructure and its critical impact on our communities. Yeah. And that has just kind of put me on a trajectory of wanting to be a doer in government, somebody who actually gets projects done, because seeing that tangible impact to me just makes me feel like I've been able to serve in the best way possible.
So you went from lifeguard, what high school?
I went to Northside College Prep.
Okay.
Yeah. So proud CPS graduate.
Okay.
Yep. And from there I went to Fordham University.
Where is that at?
It is in New York.
Okay.
So I actually went to Fordham University. Our campus was in the Bronx. I volunteered as an EMT.
Really?
While I was out. Yeah. So I was an EMT. on the ambulance for my school's volunteer EMS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you feel about that?
Well, see, I mean, talking about like emergency rooms being like the first point of care, being in the Bronx, I was transporting a lot of students to a level 1 trauma center in the Bronx. And very quickly you realize, people are just coming here for the doctor, right? You know, there are people just lined up and they don't have another healthcare access point. And at some point you realize something about this system is deeply broken if people don't feel like they have another point of healthcare other than the emergency room.
So how many years did you spend as an EMT?
4.
An EMT is an emergency medical technician,
Yeah.
for everybody who does not know.
Yeah.
So 4 years.
4 years. 4 years.
Just enough to let your license have it,
Yeah.
and you're done.
I did it just for 4 years in college, and then came back and started working in campaigns and government again, and fell back in love with that. But yeah, it was a good experience, and I think it taught me a lot from a first-hand experience of how stressed our healthcare system is.
Who was your favorite teacher in college?
Oh, my favorite teacher in college was probably Dr. Fisher. So he taught urban politics and political systems. And then probably second to my professor who did our polling classes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that affect you now, looking back at your college years in EMT, taking students, realizing that a hospital is not for doctor's appointments, it's for emergency rooms?
Yeah.
How does that affect you now?
Yeah. So I think I carry that experience with me to remind me there's so much more work that needs to be done, and it has been this way for a long time, so the problems are complex. But what you see when you're transporting to an emergency room is people who are incredibly passionate about the work they do. The providers, the nurses, everyone working in that hospital is so incredibly passionate about doing the best they can for those patients. But it has carried with me that there are some deep systemic issues that we need to work on in government, and we need to carry that knowledge with us as we're making decisions on where we focus our dollars, how we build out our systems of coverage, and also just recognizing that, you know, this is an issue that affects every community, everywhere.
And it's not only local; it's state, it's federal, it's
national.
Everywhere. It's national.
Yeah, it's everywhere. There is not an emergency room in this country where somebody isn't coming in because that's their only access to a doctor.
Right. So, take us back to graduating college.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go from there?
So from there, I came back and I was a city council intern in the Chicago City Council.
Really?
Yeah.
Who did you intern with?
So I interned actually for the former alderman of this ward, the 39th ward. So I have lived in this ward since I was 14. And I interned for her. She was my local alderman. Ended up staying with her and working on the pedestrian and traffic safety committee for the city council.
Okay.
So got a lot of legislative experience there at the local level, and then ultimately came out here. She said, I need somebody to run my local infrastructure project, and I did that, and really enjoyed that work. But ultimately got an opportunity to go run citywide operations for the city clerk's office. Okay. So I oversaw all of the vehicle sticker sales. I can tell you.
So you're the reason why.
Yeah.
You're the reason why.
Property taxes and city stickers. People love me. No, but it's very interesting because when you run citywide operations for a department, I think you get a firsthand look at so government just really doesn't work for people sometimes. Yeah. Like, it is a pain to come get your city sticker, or you have a language barrier to be able to get your city sticker, and we don't have people who speak that language. But you're just trying to do the right thing and literally pay your taxes to the government. So that kind of gave me some insight into there are ways for us to do things both more efficiently, but also with some cultural competence of the populations that we're serving, so that
we have Chicago, Illinois is very diverse. We have Ukrainians, we have Polish, we have Hispanics.
Yep.
You know, Italians. We have a lot of people here that do not speak.
Yeah.
English is not their first language.
Yeah.
Shall I say?
Yeah, and I mean we have over 70 languages spoken in our region, right? And you know, English shouldn't always be the default language for all your government services. There should always be some measure of language access for everyone in order for us to equitably deliver services.
You know what's interesting is I've been through several countries, and I speak not fluently in any other countries I've been in, but I picked up phrases, languages, words, sentences. What's interesting is everybody says that English language is so hard to learn. And when you think about it and deep dive into it, we have two words mean, you know, it's spelled the same or sound the same.
And they're spelled completely differently,
exactly,
and they have different meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister is a bilingual teacher in Belmont Cragen, and she'll tell me all the time, she's like, look, English, it just doesn't make sense, right? Some of the grammar rules don't make sense. But yeah, that's what I did.
We have two and two.
Yeah, right. We do. And I'm like, it makes no sense. So, yeah.
So we're going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
What is some of the hot topics or things that you want to talk about that we did not talk about, or you want our audience to know about you?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I would like to talk about is I think we've gotten to a place a little bit where we're starting to lose confidence in our government to be their ability to do big things, right? So when I talk about lead service lines, you talk about like the amount of money it's going to cost to replace them. You're talking about billions of dollars, right? But I try to remind people, like, this is a city that has done big things. This is a city whose government has done big things. We reversed a river.
Yes, we did.
When it was causing our city and our residents to become sick. This is something that we can do too. I have a really deep faith in government and its ability to do good for residents. I think this is something where we can do a real tangible good for people. And I hope that as an elected official and somebody who really prides themselves on getting things done, I can restore some of that confidence for people that the government can get stuff done.
Yeah, that is true. So where can people find your campaign? You want to give a plug for your...
Yeah. So you can go to elizabethpercook.com for my website, and then I'm also on TikTok at Liz Per Cook and Facebook at Elizabeth Per Cook as well.
So we're going to wrap this up. Two boys, pride and joy.
Yeah.
Tell me about them. They keep you on your toes.
They keep me on my toes. Honestly, my boys are incredible. Especially, I think about the journey that my older son has come through, and I'm so incredibly proud of him. He's got a great sense of humor. He's such a wonderful and kind and compassionate kid, but also
and hopefully
exhausting.
He stays that way.
Yes, and I'm hoping to raise him into a wonderful, kind, and compassionate man. But he also keeps me on my toes, and I have a 4-year-old son who is just a joy. Honestly, just a sweetheart and a joy, and just has he makes me laugh. He makes me laugh.
So if you have one piece of advice to give to someone that you want to pass along, either this advice came from your parents, your grandparents, your husband, or from your two boys, what would that piece of advice be?
Take it one day at a time. Anytime I've been faced with like a really challenging moment, and there's a tendency to spiral out of what if this has the most, my child's not going to be able with this. Just take it one day at a time. Just one place at a time.
That's it, All About Nothing. Thank you guys, and see you guys next week. That's it.
Great.